So it's time to create another application in the course. And in this section, we're going to create an application that plays YouTube videos. And the way we can do this, so we can achieve it by integrating the YouTube API, which is a library file that we actually are going to put into our project that has been made available from Google, who of course own YouTube. And just incidentally, if you've been following along, this is actually the third time I've had to recreate these videos. So the initial version I had to update for Android Marshmallow, and then Android Studio got updated to 1.4, and it actually broke a lot of code and changed the way things worked. So what I've done is I've actually re-recorded these for a third time. So hopefully now they'll actually be valid and work for some time. So let's get started. So I've got Android Studio open. I'm going to create a new program, so a new project rather, by clicking Start a New Android Studio Project. And we're going to call the application YouTube Player. And you can see down the bottom my project location. You'll obviously put that into whatever folder is appropriate for you. Click on Next. And we're going to leave phone and tablet and API 16, which we've done before, and all the other options disabled. So I'm going to click on Next to that. And I'm actually going to choose the blank activity and click on Next, or it's already selected, so I don't need to do anything. Click on Next. And for these options here, we're going to leave all those as the default options as well, and actually click on Finish. So that's going to create the initial project. And while that's going, what we might do is we might actually open a browser, and we'll actually go to the website or the web page that actually contains the library, the YouTube Player library that we need. So I'm just going to open a browser. I'm going to paste in the link here, and the link is developers.google.com/YouTube/Android/project, as you can see there. And this brings up this screen, and I'll just close this down, okay? And this actually brings up a screen where it's the YouTube Android Player API, and this is the actual mechanism that's going to allow us to actually play YouTube videos within our actual application. So that's how it works. It actually interacts with YouTube. So there's two components to it. There's a component that interacts with the service that's distributed as part of the YouTube app for Android, and there's also one that doesn't use that as well. So as we go through this section of the course, you'll understand that a little bit more. So I'm going to click on Download, and you'll choose whatever the current version is, and it doesn't seem to get updated that often. You can see the current version is 1.22. If you've got a newer version showing for you when you're watching this video, grab that new version, click on Download. Now I'm actually going to save it to my desktop for simplicity. It's quite a small download, so it shouldn't actually take long to actually download. We're then going to open it, so I'm just going to click on this little button down the bottom left-hand corner, Show in Finder, and I'm just going to double-click it. And I'm going to go into the folder that's been unzipped. So obviously if you're on Windows, you'll need to use an unzip tool or double-click it to uncompress it. Click into the folder and go into the libs folder. There's actually this file in here called YouTube Android Player API.jar. So I'm going to click on that, right-click it, and then select Copy. So it might be slightly different for your platform, but you'll just choose the option you would normally choose to copy a file. Then we go back to Android Studio, which should hopefully have done its thing by now, and it's actually ready to go. You can see on the screen there, and I'm just going to actually put this, make this a little bit bigger so it actually fits a bit nicer. Okay, so we've got a bit more space there now. So the first thing we need to do is come up here and make sure we've selected Project, because you'll need that to be able to get to the relevant options. Then we're just going to expand this out. I'm going to go into App. And there's this folder here called libs. So I've selected that. I right click it now. We should have the option to paste. And again, you'll have a similar option for your operating system. Click on paste. And it comes up here with this message. Do you want to copy this file? Which is obviously the YouTube Android Player API that I copied. And it will give you the path where it's copying it to, which should be the libs. So make sure it actually does say libs. Click on OK. And that should actually update in a second. We should see that actually on the screen. And then you can see it actually come up there on the screen. Next thing we need to do is go into the build.gradle file to tell it to use this file. So I'm going to go click on build.gradle. And you can see that by default, it's got these things that are built into it. So we don't need to change that. But what we need to do is we just need to add an option. And the option we're going to add is the option to actually include this file. And the format is we type compile, files, brackets, and a single quote, and we're going to type libs in YouTube, making sure you get the case sensitivity perfect, player API.jar, and a single quote and a bracket. And that really is just saying that this project is this jar file is going to be used in our project so that we can actually take advantage of the functionality that has been added by Google to enable us to play videos. So I'm going to click on sync now that we've typed that in, and Android Studio will just go away and make sure that was valid. And if you didn't type this correctly, you'd probably get an error there, or you may get an error there. So do check the case sensitivity to make sure you've typed it exactly as it actually appears in that view over here. Now, there's actually a few other things we need to do, because with Android Studio 1.4, they've introduced a few things which are slightly different to other versions of Android Studio. And what we're going to do is we're going to come in here, we're actually going to comment out some of this code. So they've actually added this new capability of actually showing a floating action button. And we can actually have a look and see what that looks like. You can see this here, this little button here. And there's also meant to be a title there which doesn't show up here, but it will actually show up once you run this application on a physical Android device, or if you actually run this on the emulator. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back here to source. I'm going to click on source, or I could just come up here and double click on main activity. But I'm going to go into source, click on main, Java. I'm going to double click main activity. And what we're going to do is comment out those lines. So we don't actually want to use this for now. We're going to just leave it out altogether. So lines we want to comment out is this line, basically this part here, starting on line 21, right down to line 28 inclusive. And I'm just going to press my command /, which is Control/ on Windows or Linux, to comment that part of the code out. So we don't actually want to use that floating action button for this particular application. So I've commented that out, as you can see. Next thing we need to do is we also need to comment out some lines of code from the activity_main.xml file. And that's this file over here. So I'm going to go into res, and go into layout, double click activity_main. And you can see that's actually showing what it looks like. We're going to click on text to go into the text mode. And what we want to do is we want to take out part of this code. And the code we want to take out is the code relating to the floating action bar button. And that's this code you can see here on line 20 to 23 inclusive. Now that may look slightly different on yours. It might be on a different line number. The main part is to select the part with floating action button and finish on the / and the greater than sign. So we're taking that entire section. I'm going to do hold down command and press / again. And Android Studio will comment that out. And again, it's Control/ if you're on Windows or Linux. So we're actually just saying here at this point, we're not going to use that part of the code. So that's it. That's the two parts we've had to remove so that we don't use that component that's been introduced in Android Studio 1.4. So now that we've done that, we're going to come back here to com.timberchowka.youtube player. I'm going to click on that, then right click it and select new. Normally we'd go ahead and click on Java class, but we're going to do something different. We're going to come down here to activity and click on gallery. We can either select blank activity from here, or we can come up to gallery. Gallery is a good option because it gives you a list of all the options that are available, all the different types of activities that you can create. So I'm still going to actually choose the blank activity. I'm going to click on next. Now we need to actually change some names here. By default, you can see it tried to use main activity, but then it noticed that main activity was already in use over here. So it's actually come up and said, I'm going to call this main 2 activity. We don't really want to do that. We want to change the names of something that makes a little bit more sense. So let's call this YouTube activity. And notice when I typed that, it actually changed also some of these other parts, so activity_YouTube, and the title was YouTube activity. So we can call that whatever we want. We can change this here. This is just the title that's going to appear on the screen. We can call that YouTube player, and everything else we can just leave as it is. Click on finish. And that's created the actual content. And notice it's created activity_YouTube and content_YouTube. Again, that's an Android 1.4 change that's been made for us. And what's happened then is also looking at the code, you can see that it's created some code for us automatically, which is good. And it's also in the Android manifest file, which is used by Android to determine some functionality like activities, how to link to other activities and so on. It's actually added an entry in there as well for us. So if we open the YouTube activity again, we're going to do the same thing here with this floating action bar. We're not going to actually need that, so I'm going to comment that out the same way we did earlier in the video. Then also for the activity YouTube, similar thing, we're actually just going to comment this out. Now in later applications in the course, we will actually use this floating action button, so we can go back and you'll see how that works. But for this particular application and any application where you don't specifically want that button, these are the steps you'd have to take to actually get rid of it. So we're now going to actually type in a bit of code into the YouTube activity. Let's go back to that now. So at the moment, that's got YouTube activity extends app compat activity. but we're actually going to change that. So what we're doing is we actually want to tell it to actually start using the YouTube library that we actually added, because we need to do that so we can take advantage of some of that functionality that's built into that library. So we're not touching main activity, but YouTube activity, we're actually going to do that. So we're going to change this and actually change where it's got app compat activity and change that to YouTube base activity, like so. And notice when I did that, I automatically got an import in there as well. And we've also got this part here that's been turned to grey, meaning it's no longer being used, and that's because we changed it. So you could delete that if you wanted to. It's probably a good idea for unused things to actually delete them, but I'll leave that there for now anyway. And the other thing we need to do is, I'm going to actually go to the next line here and tab it a bit. So, and we'll put implements YouTube player dot on initialized listener, like so. And we're getting an error now because, well, firstly, we haven't implemented some of the things that it wants us to implement in order to take advantage of that YouTube player functionality. But we've also got some errors here now. And the reason these errors are coming up is we've actually removed the app compat activity. So for now, I'm actually going to comment that out, set support action bar toolbar, because we don't need that. And as a consequence of that, we don't need the previous line either. So I'm going to leave that out as well. But what we will do is we'll actually implement the code that's necessary to remove that error message. So in relation to these errors will go away once we've implemented those methods. Now, won't be doing that in this video, so we're just actually at the stage of initial setup. But keep in mind that if you're worried about that, those messages will actually disappear. What we will do is add a few fields. Now, what I'm going to do is come in here and type private string Google API key equals TBA, and private string YouTube video ID equals TBA. TBA stands for to be added, and these are essential parts of using the YouTube API. The Google API key, you'll see me create one in a future video, and that's a unique code that's assigned to your application to enable you to take advantage of the YouTube functionality. And the video ID is actually going to be pointing to a particular YouTube video we want to actually play within our application. The next thing we want to do now is extend the layout for the YouTube activity. So basically what we need to do is add a special custom view that enables the YouTube player to actually be able to play videos in our application. So we're going to open up content_youtube.xml by double clicking it. And you can see what it's currently set to, and that's been created for us automatically. So first things first, we're going to change a few things. We're going to change this line 2 where it's got relative layout. I'm going to make that a linear layout, LIN, and that's a type. And Android's come up helpfully and said, do you mean linear layout? So yes, I'm going to press enter. And notice how it actually changed the end part as well, because the start and the end have to be the same. Then we also need to change the orientation. So I'm going to come down here and put Android orientation equals vertical. And that's relating to how content will be actually added to this page or to within this layout. We're basically saying we're using a vertical orientation, so as we add items they go down the page rather than going left to right. We now need to remove all the padding code because we don't actually need any padding here, so I'm going to do that. Remove these 4 entries there relating to padding because they'll actually cause problems because the YouTube player expects to take over sort of virtually the whole view. So I'm going to actually do that. And now under this context here, we need to actually add the YouTube component. So to type that, we're going to type com.google.android. And you notice it's coming up giving me some options anyway, but I'll just type a bit more. .youtube.player.youtube player view. Eventually it'll come up with only one option. We can just press enter to get the rest of it. And what's important here is to make sure you get the spelling correct. So you should actually see that coming up automatically. If it didn't come up for you automatically, or you indeed had a problem with the YouTube activity class, go back to your build.gradle file and just make sure you've actually typed the right things in there. In this case, we're going to use match parent. And what match parent basically means is we're going to use as much of the actual layout as we can. If we had a type to wrap content, then that will only use what it needs, which we don't want here. We really want the YouTube player to use the entire space available to play the video within that space. So I'm just going to type in a background color as well. So I'm going to come down here and type Android background. I'm going to set that equal to #FFFFFF. And when you type a color, you can actually see it come up here. So I'll just highlight that a little bit so you can see it. The little color there is set to white, and that's what this code is telling it, setting it to white. We could have also done it like this. We could have actually typed at Android color white, would have achieved the same thing there. You can see that's still set to white. So you can choose other colors along those lines and do it that way as well if you prefer. So that's actually the main thing we need to do now. So this line here is just basically the line that is really just telling Android the YouTube player is actually going to take that space up when we go to actually play a video. So that's actually it for this first video. We've actually done some basic setup, and in the next video we're going to actually configure the YouTube activity class a bit more and get rid of some of those errors that are currently showing and put some YouTube functionality in there. So I'll see you in the next video.